So I made a video about this book before. Right when I got it, I made a video. I was so excited, I made a video about the first chapter that is called Hexatonics. And in that video, I think I say that once I'm through, or once I've played through the book, I will make a lesson covering the whole book. And I realized that that's not going to happen because there's just way too much stuff in this book. Line Games by Randy Vincent, right? Definitely one of the best books I've ever seen. And it's just impossible to cover all this stuff. So later on in the video, at the end of the video, I will just talk about some of the content in the book, just mention different chapters. So what I'll do instead is I'll talk about this chapter 4. I'll just go over another chapter briefly, and it's called 4-Note Arpeggios and Pluralities. This is something that I've been aware of, and you're probably aware of these things, but I never thought of it as something that you could actually put into a system, like conceptualize. Is that a word? Conceptualize. So it's really fascinating. So we'll look at that. I'll explain what it is and how you can use it. And yeah, let's get started. The best way for me to explain this is to show you a diminished arpeggio like this. Probably all played that and you're thinking, what the hell is this now? So let's just analyze what this actually is that we're doing. I'm thinking of this right now as a C diminished. I'm starting on the A. So it's 4 notes, right? The 4-note arpeggio. A diminished 7 chord is a 4-note chord. Those are the 4 notes. And then I'm just playing the same shape on the next set of strings, and then on the top set of strings. So the chord spelled out: A, C, E flat, G flat. I think of it as F sharp, and then the same thing an octave higher, and then another octave, 2 octaves higher. This just happens to be asymmetrical, so that's why it's lends itself really well to the guitar. I learned this, somebody showed this, one of the first things I learned on the guitar. And I thought, it's cool, sounds like Amy Winehouse. This is actually the only 4-part chord that is symmetrical, where all the notes have the same distance from one another. It's just minor thirds, stacked. So what are we doing? We're playing actually 7, 1, 3, 5. So the A is actually the 7th of that chord, right? We think of it as a 6th, but it's actually a double flat 7, like a diminished 7. That's why it's called a diminished 7 chord. So we're playing 7, or diminished 7, 1, flat 3, flat 5. Diminished 7, 1, flat 3, flat 5. Diminished 7. So that means that we can do that with any 4-part chord. And what are the different 4-part chords? There are quite a few. So before we go over all of those, let's just look at a few that are more relevant, more applicable than others. So major 7. A C major 7, if I do the same thing, like 7, 1, 3, 5. So I'm starting on the 7. Go up to the next set of strings. This is something I also learned pretty early on. I think it's like a George Benson thing. He likes to play that kind of stuff, especially at descending. It's funny because it doesn't really make sense from a fingering perspective, but because it's so consistent that we're playing the same shape, it's easy to do fast, I think, even though if you think about it, the fingering is kind of crazy. Here I'm on the index finger and I'm moving to the fourth finger. And no guitar method book would tell you to do that. That's actually quite terrible fingering. But we're doing a quick position shift. And the consistency of the shapes kind of trumps the awkward fingerings, I think. It's also important to remember that, of course, this C major 7 could be many things. And that's what he means by pluralities. So it could be, for example, A minor 9, right? Like a C major 7 over an A creates an A minor 9 chord. So that means I could play this arpeggio. It sounds beautiful over A minor. It could be like a D sus, if I put the D on the bottom. D sus 13. It could be, you could stretch it and go a bit further. It could be some kind of F, I guess F Lydian chord. It's not a very practical major 7 chord because it sounds like a C major 7 over F, which it is. But it could be a nice sound. So it could be an F Lydian. I had a friend who took lessons with Ben Maunder, and he showed me the kind of stuff that he got there. And Ben Maunder takes this way further and explore even more kind of intricate harmonies. Like it could be a over A flat, could be that's an A flat major, sharp 5, sharp 9. He even takes it further and goes C major 7 over E flat. It's a little bit weird. It's like an E flat major 6, flat 9, sharp 5. I don't know. It's not very relevant, but it's also interesting to explore sounds, but maybe we should do that another day. Another 4-part chord that is really nice to play this way is actually the minor 7 flat 5. So C minor 7 flat 5. Remember that could also be E flat minor 6. E flat minor 6 and C minor 7 flat 5 share the same notes, right? So depending on how you think of it. So if I have an E flat minor 6 chord, also heard George Benson do this. He does this all the time. It's very common in gypsy jazz, Django style of guitar playing to play these arpeggios. Now this specific voicing sounds great, and it could also be a lot of things. It could be D-altered. That's important to remember. This could be D-altered because this chord can be found in the E flat melodic minor scale. So it's a D-altered, which gives us the sharp 5 or flat 13, flat 7, flat 9, third. I think those are the most relevant. The major 7, the minor 7 flat 5 actually, and the diminished. Let's just go over a few other ones. So I've got the metronome there so you can play along. So C minor 7, starting the 7th. C dominant 7. C major 7 sharp 5. This is also pretty good. And let's do C major 7 flat 5. And C minor major 7 is a good one. Let's just look at a few of these. So for example, the C major 7 sharp 5, we don't see that chord too often unless you're playing like ECM jazz. But this could be used over A minor major 7 9 chord. I remember Scott Henderson, he liked to do this. So the G and the G sharp. Like with the slides. It's like a Scott Henderson thing. The C major 7 flat 5 could also be used in many different ways. I have made a video about the major 7 flat 5 chord. And if you want to work on that chord and that sound, the tune to work on is Inner Urge by Joe Henderson. It's all about that major 7 flat 5. The C minor major 7 could also be a lot of things. It could be A minor 7 flat 5. So I call this superimposing arpeggios, and in this book he calls it pluralities, and he's got a whole list here of different combinations of possibilities of how to superimpose, or table of pluralities he calls it. Then there are more obscure chord shapes, or you could do sus4. It's kind of cool actually. Oh, I guess diminished major 7. That's pretty relevant too, diminished major 7. You could do a diminished major 7 with a A flat. Don't know what to call that. Some diminished sound. Could come up with different hybrid 4-part chords. There's just one I want to share with you, which is like a C major 7 with an F instead of G. That is really cool sound. I talk about this one in my video on Dodge the Dodo, the tune Dodge the Dodo by E.S.T, which is covered by Swedish guitarist Ulf Lackenius, where he plays this chord with his arpeggio. Like a Phrygian sound. Which is really cool. So you can come up with different shapes. This chord, by the way, is a beautiful chord, like a C major 7 with an F instead of G. Very modern sounding. So that does make sense to kind of explore different shapes, but we want to separate the kind of conventional generic arpeggios with the more hybrid, unusual ones. Now, since we're doing this, right, we're playing 2 notes on 1 string, and then we're playing 2 notes on another string. That means we can flip it and reverse it. So I'm starting with these 2 notes. So it would be here. So I'm running out of register, so let's do G major 7. So that's like an inversion of what I just played before. So instead of 7 1 3 5, it's 3 5 7 1. 3 5 7 1. Sounds like that. What is it? The TV series Stranger Things. Which means that you can do this with all the different chords that we just went over. Remember, some are more relevant than others. So, which one did I say? Well, minor 7 flat 5. Sounds like Django Reinhardt. But you should work on all of these, but if you want to limit yourself, maybe just do the normal ones, like major 7, minor 7, minor 7 flat 5, and the dominant ones. Of course, there's a dominant sharp 5, dominant flat 5. I find that with those kind of chords, it's better to use superimposed arpeggios, but it's a good idea to work on those as well. It's not possible for me to just go over all of these in every combination. It's just going to take too long. I want to move on to the next idea that he talks about, which is to use these in a kind of a harmonic situation, like a harmonic context. So one thing that you can do is you can play, let's say you have a 2-5-1 in G. So A minor, D altered, let's say, to G major 7. You can find chords that are kind of close to one another and use them as pluralities. So remember, we could use a C major 7 over the A and a C minor 7 flat 5 over the D, and then I can play B minor 7 over the G. That gives me on the A, the minor 3rd, the 5, the flat 7, 9th, on the D, the flat 7, flat 9, 3rd, flat 13, and on the G, the 3rd, 5, major 7, 9. Probably heard this. It's quite common to play like this. So I'm gonna loop a little 2-5-1 here. Maybe sounds like a Django Reinhardt tune. It could also be an E7 after that G, so an E7 to take us back. And there I could play D minor 7 flat 5. So if I have those chords, tune Pentap House, right? People do this all the time. I just never thought of it as something you could think of as a concept. So that 2 chord could also be a dominant chord, right? So A7 to D7. Then I would play C sharp minor 7 flat 5. So I've heard people call this piano voicings because it's kind of, that's what the right hand would play with the piano player, like, and then the bass with this hand, right? So or if you don't want to alter that second dominant, you could play C major flat 5 there. So C major 7, C major 7 flat 5. It's kind of like this tune. 4 Brothers. So there's different ways you can use these shapes, and in the book he talks about this. He talks about like building these lines around the same note. So if I play D before everything, or a moving line like he takes it further and explores different weird sounds like I'm telling you, there's so much in here. I'm kind of forgetting stuff. So one thing I want to talk about before actually this was that there is a specific whole chapter about fingerings, because let's go back to the first thing we did. The diminished arpeggio. Remember I said it's like a Django Reinhardt sound, and he famously just played with lines with these 2 fingers. So that might seem weird, but if you think about it this way, instead of thinking 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes. This is gonna sound weird, but just shift your perspective. Play 1 note, and then think of this, and this. So I'll play the first note, and then I move my hand here. Then it makes more sense to use these 2 fingers. So if we apply that to, let's say, the G major 7 arpeggio we had starting on the B. So I play the first note, and then I move my hand to play this. Move my hand, slide. I just play with the 2 fingers there, maybe not the last note or the first note if I'm descending. It actually makes a whole lot of sense to use 2 fingers, and there's a whole chapter about these long arpeggios where he writes out the fingerings for all of the different combinations, the major 7 sharp 5s, flat 5s, the dominants, the sus, all of it. Like, it's a lot of stuff. Like, this is just a chapter on that, just page after page about this stuff. By the way, there's no tabs here, so don't ask me about the tabs, please, because if you don't understand the theory behind this, the tabs not going to help, right? I'm not against tabs at all. but this is a theory book, so you need to kind of understand what the notes are, right? There's also a whole chapter on how to practice these, like patterns. You know, just like you play scales patterns, scalar patterns, you should play arpeggio patterns. Or you could play four note. Maybe like this. Tons of ideas for that. So let's go back to the 2-5-1 in G. So A minor 7, D altered, G major 7. So I use the C major, C minor 7 flat 5, B minor. But let's use the long form. There you go. Find little ideas to make it sound like you're playing a motif and then kind of continuing on that idea. I don't know, like let's do the inversion. So I should also mention that this works over minor 2-5s as well. So if I have a minor 2-5, so A minor 7 flat 5 to D altered to G minor 6, I guess. I could play C minor major 7 to C minor 7 flat 5 to B flat major 7 flat 5 or sharp 5. Here you can also use that to repeat the D. Sorry, I digress. So again, so much. That was just one chapter. And I didn't even talk about half of it. Just to go over the different chapters. In the beginning, as I've already made a video, was the hexatonic idea. Then there's a whole chapter on bop scales. So if you want to know about bop scales, there's everything you need to know about bop scales and how you can use fingerings different. If you're wondering about fingerings, sometimes people ask me, what fingerings do you use for bop scales? This is a whole chapter just on that. I don't agree with all of it, but it's really good to go over this stuff. Inside playing, outside playing, triad pairs, mutually exclusive triad pairs, positional fingerings for major. Oh man, it's just long fingerboard pattern for the major whole step pair. And then there was chapter I just covered, and then there's something he calls, I call it cells. He calls it building lines on skeleton melodies. So 2-5-1, short 2-5-1s with different skeletons that you kind of add stuff to create lines. And then there's a bunch of stuff about thematic development, examples from Wes Montgomery recorded solos, samples from more Wes Montgomery, Joe Pass, ideas, Tal Farlow ideas. Yeah, I've been using this for over a year now, and I'm still not, I have a few things left. Can't recommend this book enough. And so if you, from here, where do you go from here? Well, you could go to that video where I talk about this book's first chapter called Hexatonics, or you can also watch an old video I made about superimposing arpeggios if you were confused about how this works with the different arpeggios over different chords. So, as always, this stuff I covered there is on my Patreon page as PDFs, and thank you to my patrons, and as always, I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I shall see you next time.